Hi, this is Phoenix, and I'm going to talk about just some of my recent thoughts that I've had. I want to start off by, of course, mentioning Friedrich Nietzsche and his idea of the will to power, or an idea that could also be called the will to self expression, to self mastery, and a mastery of one's external conditions. I find all of that fascinating, and it evokes questions in my mind, such as what is the meaning of life? What is the purpose of life? And I think these are very, very difficult questions to answer. But I think that nonetheless we can answer them, and we must at the very least strive to answer them and work to answer them in order to come to beneficial conclusions, not just for ourselves, but also for our communities and our community and for the world. I would start off by making an interesting observation that I made today as I was driving home to my parents' house to be able to go on a long trip to visit family, my grandparents included. And essentially, what happened was I was thinking about life and asking the question, what is the meaning of life? And is there meaning? And I was thinking of the old nihilist conundrum or quandary of the simple statement that there is no meaning, and that there's no meaning because the world is inherently stripped of meaning. The world in which we live in simply has no inherent meaning or value. And of course, this is ridiculous because we bring value to things. It's not something that necessarily has to be intrinsic or inherent in order to be valuable. And that's one of the fallacies of nihilism, is to assume that meaning must somehow be intrinsic and must belong to something to exist. And I think that that doesn't need to be true. I think there's nothing wrong with making the statement that we bring value. But anyway, I found myself slipping into a kind of slightly nihilistic mindset, or at least insofar as I was trying to question meaning itself and whether or not things have meaning. And I remember seeing a kid walking with his friends. He had just gone out of a junior high, and that immediately evoked in my mind the idea of life, and life in many different contexts, with many different connotations and definitions, but life as the life that we live. And to a nihilist, or to someone who has trouble finding meaning in life, I would say that life itself is where we find the meaning. So, seeing life in other people, for instance, is how we find meaning. Seeing the life that exists, or understanding that the life that exists elsewhere also exists within us. And that life can be this very transcendental concept that has a lot of value and brings a lot of meaning to our lives. Uh, Speaking more broadly. And I think that that's crucial, and I think that's important. I think that it's very tempting in our day to day lives to wish that we had more, to wish that we were someone else. So, for instance, to wish that we had better health, or to wish that we had a better job, or a nicer house, or more intelligence. But I think all of this is a distraction from where we find meaning and how we find meaning. And that seems to be that it has to be something that is internal. We must find meaning through the internal, and specifically through our own internal resources. And I think this is what is so powerful, to go back to Nietzsche, about his ideas of self mastery and self expression, which is that it's got to be something that's internal. One of the things that bugs me about people that read existentialism and read into existentialism is they think that life is basically nothing but negativity. Life is nothing but a catastrophe and disaster, and therefore there is no meaning. And they use that. Uh, uh, they use the existentialist notion of catastrophe and anxiety and suffering as a justification for no meaning. And I get frustrated with this because when I look at existentialists such as Nietzsche, I see this really, really brilliant and I think insightful understanding that life is about expression, and that we find meaning through expression. And of course, this ties me back into my ideas about life, right? Because before I was saying that the meaning to life and the answer to nihilism is life itself. And I would say that expression is a kind of life, and comes from life. And I think that that's a very powerful claim, in the sense that not only am I saying that life is expression, life equals expression, a formula that should rival Einstein's E equals mc squared. I'm saying that, I'm also saying that expression is inherently lifelike, it's inherently full of life, and it's inherently full of meaning. And I think this is important for me as I realize that in a lot of ways I'm at a crossroads in my life. Of course, I'm always at a crossroads in many ways because there's always new things I'm discovering and new choices that I have to make to lead to new paths and new opportunities and new possibilities. But I find myself wondering, how is it that Phoenix expresses himself? How is it that he expresses his life? Obviously, he does that by internalizing a kind of nostalgia when he sees a kid with his friends and he sees their freedom, and he wonders why he doesn't have the meaning that they have, why he doesn't have the power of expression and self-expression that they have. But obviously all of that is a distraction, because I, Phoenix, find value and specifically expression through the words that I communicate every day, whether in conversation or through my writing or any other medium. And I think that that's crucial, and I think that that's important. I think that there's certainly a lot that that this life has to offer us, that this life can give us, and I think a lot of that comes through expression and through understanding that we can indeed express ourselves in very powerful ways. And of course, one of the ways we can do that is through language, also through existentialist action. I think we certainly mustn't take any of those possibilities for granted. We can also do it through possibility. We can even do it through not even just choice or action, but silence, non-action in a sense. So simply realizing that we can have a thought, and this is kind of an Eastern idea, but we can have a thought and it doesn't have to have an immediate implication. So it's a matter of keeping our ideas simple. These are just some of my thoughts right now as I prepare for a trip that I'm going to be taking with my parents for about a month. I'm nervous because I think about many things. I wonder sometimes if things ever change, and I wonder if things can change, but I'm optimistic, and I think that things can indeed change for the better, and they do change for the better all the time. And a lot of this comes through expression. And this is, in a sense, why I affirm myself as Phoenix, and why I affirm myself as someone who expresses themselves and seeks to be a master of themselves, a master of their emotions and their passions, to be able to create positive and meaningful interactions in the world. This is Phoenix, and thank you.